Welcome. I just finished reading this book, The Wisdom of Dying Practices for Living by N. Michael Murphy, MD. It was published in 1999, and there were six, takeaways or things that I thought about when I was reading this book that I thought might be interesting to share. I find that I find myself reading a lot of books about dying because I'm not sure why. I think because we all will, and I don't want to live in fear of it. And so I read books to feel more comfortable with it, I guess. So this book, by the way, was published in 1999. So there's been quite a bit of time since then. So I'm hoping that things have moved along. And when I say that, Dr. Murphy was, I guess I'm going to go out of order because I wrote my six things, but I'm talking about the last thing first, so it's fine. But he talks about training medical professionals in hospitals about the practices of healthy rituals, healthy ways to accept death, and ways to die peacefully, and ways for people who are left behind to acknowledge, grieve, and continue their lives in a healthy way. And so I haven't had much experience with this, especially in hospitals. I know that my partner's mother died in January of 2024. She did not spend time in a hospital. She spent time in a nursing home under hospice care. And that's actually where Dr. Murphy spent a lot of his time at the time of him writing this book. He was involved in a hospice home in New York, I believe. And so I know from my own experience that hospice is absolutely a wonderful organization that is full of love and caring and gentleness and grace. I experienced hospice with my partner's mother recently within the last year, and also with my own mother back in 2006 to 2008 when my mother was dying of lung cancer. So I know that hospice does amazing things. I guess Dr. Murphy's point is that it shouldn't just be hospice that's doing this wonderful work, that doctors in hospital settings and other settings can also do this important work, which involves a lot of soul work, less. So when someone's given a diagnosis, like a terminal diagnosis, there is, according to Dr. Murphy, my perception of what he said, my translation, is that there's a lot of work to be done to make the soul peaceful. And that has a lot to do with connections with other people. Connections, love connections are one of the most, if not the very most important thing to make us feel loved, accepted, understood. According to Dr. Murphy, it's really something that is required as part of being a human being. We need to feel connected. And there's this quote from the book. He calls it the timeless connectedness that is beyond ego. So when so a lot of this is in the frame of preparing to die, but also this has a lot to do with living consciously, so that if we get to a point where we find that we are dying and we have time to prepare for our own death, because some people do and some people don't. Some people die suddenly. So there's even more reason to live consciously every day, to live as though, or to live with the intention of being connected and having connections that are important to us. Dr. Murphy talks about storytelling being a very important part of feeling connected. Storytelling meaning that we are listened to without interruption. Dr. Murphy mentions many, many rituals, but one of them is the storytelling, the family meeting, the storytelling. He talks about the talking stick, sitting in a circle, and it can be done with family members, it can be done with friends, it can be done with both. And how the talking stick, the person talking gets the stick and nobody else comments. It's funny because it kind of reminds me of an Al-Anon meeting where you have your time to share and nobody interrupts and nobody comments. It's completely non-judgmental. You just get to say your piece. And I thought that sounded like a really neat idea. People do this when they know they're dying, but Dr. Murphy is saying it's a great thing to do when you know you're dying, but it's also a great thing to do when everyone is seemingly healthy, because it just creates tighter bonds. And again, we don't have to agree with each other, we just have to hear each other, so that it's like when you see someone's soul, you can't feel strongly against them. When you really see what's in someone's soul and you see how vulnerable they are and how much you really are similar, I would think it's almost impossible to hold any kind of hatred or ill will towards them, because you see their humanness, like I said, just the vulnerability that we all have. Dr. Murphy talks about giving blessings and receiving blessings when we know that we're seeing someone that we may not ever see again, but we have things to say to them, even if the relationship was a strained relationship. Facts can be said matter of factly. Say what you mean, but don't say it mean, and bless that person for if it was your parent, just for being your parent, and asking for a blessing in return. And Dr. Murphy says, this is another quote, this is my last quote on the blessings, on giving a blessing and receiving a blessing. It is much easier than we thought to let go of disappointments, hurts, hatreds, and to forgive, thus becoming free. So, those are my notes on this book. I I enjoyed it. I thought that it gave me pause for thought because I've always, since seeing my mother die in 2008 of lung cancer, I've believed, like, pretty firmly that when my time comes, I will, uh, just stop eating and drinking or something. Like, basically, I will speed along my own death. And Dr. Murphy in the book says that actually that's a pretty common thought. It's actually rooted in fear. And he makes the point that when we feel connected and cared for, we're not in a rush to die. We're at peace with dying, but we're not in a rush to die. And for me, I personally planned my own funeral this past summer, paid for it, uh, talked to my son about it, talked to my partner about it, what I want, what I don't want, updated my living will and my advanced healthcare proxy or advanced healthcare directive, whatever it's called now. The name changes sometimes. And this book just gave me more food for thought, and I really appreciated that. And so I'll keep thinking about it, but I'm really glad that I read this book. I thought it was interesting, and it gave me some unique, interesting information that I didn't have before I read it. And I thought I would share that with you. And all of this thinking about death just makes me savor every second of my life. And I think that's a good thing. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Sending you love. Take care.